Yeah, Jacob. Do you have this book? What book? I told you to buy it. Oh, my book? Do you have it? Oh, you're talking to. Ah, yes, buy that book, Jacob. It'd be quite enlightening. Uh, the first one's good. The second one is amazing. All right, let's see what's going on here. I don't remember it. I can look at it later if it's the one. I don't know. I'd have to look at it. Scroll up. Let's see. We'll get to it later. Let's see what the market's doing here. So several days up off of the low, momentum stalled. SPX, I don't know if it hit 4,500, but it was in a few ticks of hitting there. It's a big level, and over the last few days we talked about bringing up the rear. Stocks playing catch up, meaning sometimes refer to them as the junk, and they're not necessarily that they're always junk, but they're the underperformers. And so they performed, and I'll just switch to this page for a second if I can. You see our breadth internal reached the prior peak where it turned down from before. Another question obviously is, if it keeps poking up, maybe it'll nail this plus 100 level, which it's been a long time since it was up there, and that preceded, a drop lower. In any event, this is the Russell, not the Russell, the mid cap, and that's been underperforming for a very long time, same as the Russell, and now it's at the top of the range. Now going back to our typical page, while the Russell isn't up to the top of its range, it also brought up the rear very nicely, created a void below, but it's right at all these pivot highs. And you can see how it backed off yesterday. And this is, what we call our factory work, common sense, MTS approach. Look to the left. Support and resistance. Pivot low, buyers stepped up here. That doesn't mean it was going to rally that far, but there was a wide range bar coming off of the low, and that suggested it could go higher. And one of the concepts, from, I think it's in that book, but certainly in our course, is that when prices trade above and back down below a prior level, it neutralizes it. And this is my own theoretical, backed up by almost 30 years of observation and trial and error. And, the reason I came up with that was because of situations like this that, many years ago kind of really confused and dumbfounded me as to how prices could move like this off of a low when, say there's a whole lot of resistance there. Sometimes I know Dan likes to use football players as a way of saying, hey, there's a lot of supply up there. So if that's the case, well, how does it go through that? And at other times, how does it not go through it? Well, you have to come up with rules for your trading plan, right? That's what a trading plan is. It's a group of rules that tells you if this, then that, and how to interpret certain things based on historical norms. And so trade above, trade below. What we're really interested in is this. And as you look at the hourly chart, You can see as we come up to this larger area of resistance, everything to the left there is irrelevant. So that's how you can see something like this and come to a bias about what is likely to happen. So there's a little bit of a lesson for the day. And let's look at some other markets, which many of them are up at some resistance level. Obviously, SPX made new highs, and this stalling in momentum didn't stop it from reaching the targeted area. And this could go higher, of course. There's no violation of this up move yet, but you can see this is another way of visually recognizing that momentum is slowing. On a higher time frame, we just see a narrow range. On an expanded time frame, we see that the pivot highs and lows are getting closer together versus this type of a momentum move. So I'll just drag that up there. And so now it's going sideways, which is what it was doing the past couple of days. And, went up. And the weekly is still in an uptrend. And so we say it'll do that until it stops. Futures down a little bit here today. We've got this political event coming. Maybe the market decides just, moving a little too far, too fast. That event creates some uncertainty, what's going to come out of their mouths and whatever. But those things typically only create jiggles in the short term. But inside day so far, momentum is stalled, just kind of running in place. So as far as market-wise goes, it's probably going to get more running in place today until this day passes or whatever they're going to say. And, hedge funds and whatever hanging on the edge of their seats, economists looking for that special few words that'll guide them if they can talk about. But we've now got a relatively large congestion area now, which hopefully has become more significant if prices should close down below there because of the way it came up. So, this is typically the point where markets, stocks, just movements like this tend to stall. But there's plenty of stocks that there are stocks that are moving, but even what I finally call the junk has moved up quite a bit into resistance areas, and the uncertainty of news, these trends, we may be headed for another choppy day, but we'll see what is moving stock wise as things get going. NASDAQ, new all-time highs. You can see the little rounding top going on here. Still uptrend, minor support. We'll see if it pokes lower here. And this support area that I drew a few days ago was just related to eyeballing the halfway mark of this wide range bar. There's nothing to the left. So sometimes things spike down and they spike up. That was a little poke down. And these little pokes under support and recoveries are bullish. Unfortunately, it didn't go further anywhere. And so sellers are up here, distribution going on, broke under these lows. It's stabilizing now. Weekly looks bullish. We'll see how this ends the week. It's just a step-by-step process that we go through. The interpretation is always the same, and that's what creates consistency in what you're doing. It doesn't mean everything makes sense all the time. Like this choppy consolidation, uptrend, spikes down, and immediately spikes back up again. Sometimes we get some kind of crazy price action that isn't historically normal, but we have a method that recognizes what it is and what to go with. So the Russell up at the top.
Attention, an alert target has been reached.
Thank you. Up at the resistance area here, stalling, typical. Now we wait to see what it does here. Does it go sideways, what we call bullish price action, absorbing supply, which will set that up to go higher? And the weekly chart assuming that closes that way, would support that. But now we need to see some kind of correction bar over here. Why? Because it helps remove supply. You know, the buyers that are in this, they're hoping that it can go through that. Some are selling, obviously. But if we would get some kind of range expansion, break lower, and a recovery where it comes back up again, that's the idea of removing supply. Those buyers, right, that would love to sell up here, a lot of them are going to hit their stops. We don't know how many. We just look at the bar. There's something like this or something like this. You know, as a trend gets closer to its what we call its destination, which we see in a higher time frame, you know, these type of bars, you know, become, they're still suggesting it's going to go higher and buyers are stepping up. But the closer you get to here, the greater the likelihood that prices will come back in again. And more common sense. Dow has been underperforming. Same stall. And you know what? This, you know, I was thinking just a little while ago, when I saw this was green and all this is red, you know, while it's been underperforming, it may actually bring up the rear and push up to this prior high. While the others, maybe they just don't go up much, but they don't go down either. So this was, you know, all over the place first thing in the morning, and it recovered yesterday. And so right now it's an inside day, but again, maybe it'll push higher. Right? McGraw's telling me CRM will do its job. That's up a bunch of days, McGraw. You know, it's got to take out these highs, and it's a little bitty type of correction bar. It's really not powerful enough. So I don't know. Maybe. UNH, let's see what it's doing. See, this is something that I would think has more potential to help drive the Dow. First of all, it's a high price stock. It's underperformed and it's pulled back. It's part of what's held the Dow back. Now, this is pulled back enough into this little support area, real kind of close to the 20 MA. But if it should make a turn here, this is something that could drive the Dow higher. And it's a large influence on the Dow. So we'll see if this can actually make a turn. All right. I threw this in here just to go through our daily routine with these cryptos, you know, gaps. But, you know, they're holding up relatively well after the run. You know, Bitcoin looks similar to that. You know, it's up at that 50,000 level. It's stalled, starting to get a reversal bar on the weekly, but that's okay. You know, it took out this pivot high and it took out here, and it's at the beginning of some resistance area and a whole number. So a little consolidation, profit taking. And come on, oil up it. No, it's starting to make a turn. It's not quite into resistance, but into the declining 20. So we see many things with momentum stalling here. And whether it's this news event that's coming, or whether, hey, buyers just backing off because of the move over the last few days. You know, gold, a little breakout failure there. Came off of the low with a vengeance, but that's the kind of little bearish pattern that says if you were in this or you bought the breakout, that's not what you want to see. Silver, been weak. I thought maybe it could bring up the rear and play some catch up, but doesn't look like that's going to happen just yet. But I'd set an alert above here, especially if this closes red today. You know, when you get the beginnings of a turn, especially from a higher time frame, like here, you got the weekly into this support, and you see very questionable sell setups. Set an alert above just above the high of the sell setup. See if it fails. Right. Transports running in place, going nowhere. Not a bad thing. And interest rates poking up here a little bit definitely helped the financials, make that run. Even the regionals, come up. So everything's up at resistance here. Momentum is stalling. Maybe it's a beach day or a golf day. It's one of those days to make sure going into the beginning of the days, don't become the frog in the blender. So all yours, Dan. Oh, the dollar. Well, last I looked, the euro was flip-flopping around here. And maybe this is a bit of a breakdown failure, not sure yet. It poked below the low at a wide range bar so far. It's that greater than 100% retracement concept. And so you got to be careful after they make that 100% retracement. Look at the weekly of the dollar poking up and didn't go anywhere, a little breakout failure. I'm not sure, so I'd steer clear of what's going on there.
I thought you told me to go to the beach.
Well, you see the weather out there, Dan, but maybe you got what I meant, right?
Yeah, no, I can ride my bicycle if it's cloudy. All right, so all the opens look fine. I got more red than green in my minder, but they're all small. I gave you a list there of, we've been talking about so many things that are at resistance. Well, this one just blasted through it, but there's a number of things for daily, weekly, monthly are all in alignment, and it's just trying to get on board on the daily is the problem, unless you're scaling in with a big stop. DFNS, I don't know. This kind of looks like a SPAC, just going sideways at $10. I have no interest in that. St. Louis Fed Bullard was talking, and he was talking. I mean, I respect the guy because he's the only one, or the most transparent one, where he's talking about not being political, and he's like, hey guys, there's no reason for us, we're creating another housing bubble. Don't you all remember 2008 what happened? And he's humble enough. He said, you know what, I kind of turned my head in 2008 also. And he said, let's keep an eye on the ball and not do the same thing here. So he says, so many of what's going on is actually hurting the poor people, and Biden is Mr. Socialism, and somebody needs to tell him these policies, inflation, etc., can't buy a house, are hurting the poor people, not the rich people. That's why I was looking at XHB, and actually I see a little gap up there. But here again, McGraw, I think you even asked me about housing. It's a bullish weekly, monthly, but again, like so many things we've been talking about all week, they've had bullish runs, but they're at resistance. So there's nothing to do with this. And McGraw, your guy, called this a breakout again. And that's just malpractice, to me, to say that on a daily chart like that. It's just a ridiculous statement. All right, let's continue. PRNT had earnings, and you see where you see why I look at these 4 time frames like this, because I look at the weekly and monthly. The weekly, that's a multi-month bottoming pattern on the weekly. And the month, same with the monthly. So we got to figure out how to get on board on the daily. 5 bars up, again, it's not the time to do it. Colette on what? 1, 2, 3 on what? Chris, where do I find a list for gaps? What PDD? PDD. We don't post a gap list. I'm going over earnings and other gappers right now, but you gotta get gappers from your own software and or TC2000 has pre-market and post-market. PDD. If I mean, I see a gapping down again here today, Khaled, which is good. If you can get 2 inside bars, since that was power, look at the volume, power on the weekly, you still have a price void. I'm okay with that tomorrow over the highs. You know, target, I don't know, just somewhere deeper into this, 110 maybe. SLQT earnings getting slammed. Wow, 14 down to 9. That's ugly. This looks like another SPAC to me, hovering at $10, down, up. Capping at $30. I don't know if that's like a genuine gap per se, or if it's, yeah, that's what I'm. Oh, there is a short squeeze, but yeah, I was gonna say something like that. Is it a real gap, or is the gap created by some type of new entity? Correct. In which case, it's not a gap that has a gap message. Well, then it does have a message. If it's a short squeeze, then that is true. There was a ton of retail. Rocket we were watching for a couple of days to see if it would hold here. They said they were going to start loans on cars, and I don't know if that was a little bit of the excitement this morning and yesterday. Who knows? Ride. This is one of these EV stocks that says they're running out of money. I don't know what the news is this morning, but nice pop. Why? We've been talking about this for a couple days now. Climactic volume, igniting bar, deep retracement with power bars, so do not think short. And now it's gapping up to $63. Wow. So now, based on retracement rules, you should be thinking buy a bullish pullback. Postage here. Here's another one I put on that list for core trades, but there's absolutely no entry on the daily. And why do I say that? Look at weekly, monthly. But you know, it's going to take a while to get on board. JR is asking about WSM. Yeah, there's, like I said, a lot of earnings in retail. Long WSM, you got to be kidding, JR. You know, it's I have zero clue what it's going to do here, but just visually, we don't buy things with a gap that big unless you're just day trading, and then I would recommend waiting 30 minutes to see if you can at least get a pattern, a tradable pattern on an intraday. Look at MTAP. MTAP kind of looks like a core long also, but a big gap. I'm gonna add that to my core long watch list. Zuo. Zuo's a big mess, gapping up to 18. Look at that, it's not even printing yet. These are pre-market prints, but Zuo, I guess I don't know why they're not printing on ECNs right now, but look at my daily chart. There's no prints going on. There, finally, that was weird. Oh, I got the whole laptop. All right, thanks. Thank you.